Hello and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about Magic the Gathering that's sometimes wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Leslie,
I'm Shauna.
and today we're going to bring you another deep dive into the pre-constructed decks of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We're going to talk about each of the cards, what they do, some strategies for playing this deck, as well as if you wait till the end, we're going to give you some suggestions for tweaks if you want to put some different things in this deck. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. We hope you are too. And Shauna is going to tell us what deck we're doing and what it does.
All righty there, little lady. Well, this time we are digging into the most wanted Outlaws deck of the new set coming out. What is it called again? How do you say it? I can't even think of how to say that. Yeah, I just know there's
Out-
Outlaws of this deck.
Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We're just diving into this deck here today. We have Olivia, the opulent outlaw, is our commander of this deck. She is a 3/3 for one and the Mardu colors, which is red, white, and black. One of my favorites. She is, of course, a vampire, but she's also an assassin in this world. She has flying and lifelink, and whenever one or more outlaws you control deal combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token. So, what are outlaws? In this set, we have assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. Those are all outlaws. So, you're going to see a bunch of them in this deck. You can pay 3 and sacrifice 2 treasures and put 2 1/1 counters on each creature you control, but only as a sorcery. So, this deck is all about swinging in there and making your creatures bigger, getting lots of treasure, and just going to town, um, just attacking. That's basically what this deck does, using counters, and yeah, they have to
Be
try to keep up to
aggressive.
you,
Be
basically.
be aggressive.
Exactly, exactly. We also have our secondary commander is Vihan Goldwaker, for just the red, white, and black. 3/3 dwarf warlock, so he's an outlaw as well. And other outlaws you control have vigilance and haste. So again, that attacking, and you don't even have to tap your guys. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have treasures you control become 3/3 construct assassins, artifact creatures, in addition to their other types. So swing with them. They have vigilance, and then use them later. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Woohoo! So Leslie's going to tell us a little bit about the deck breakdown.
That's me. All right. First, we'll look at the mountain. Sorry, my cat is really bothering me. You saw him. He was on the screen. That's Ezio Auditore. Yes, named after the Assassin's Creed character.
Assassin!
And
There
he's
we go. How
being
convenient.
super annoying right now because he wants to be fed. Um,
Assassin.
so
He's an assassin.
he is an assassin.
Huh,
So he's perfect for this deck.
exactly.
Um, yeah, the mana curve of this deck is a beautiful bell curve. 4 at 0 to 1, 14 at 2, 20 at 3 mana cost, which is chef's kiss on par. Uh, 10 at 4, 10 at 5. We have 3 at 6 plus and 2 that are X cost, which should be on the higher end, which is
Mhm.
why they get put at the end. Color breakdown, we have 7 multicolor, 10 colorless, and then as far as the colors of this deck, we are very black heavy. 25 in black, 14 in red, and then white has the least amount in as 7. Card types, 34 creatures. Again, aggressive deck. You want to put lots of creatures out, buff them
Mhm.
up, swing hard. Sorceries and instants, we have 14, 5 enchantments, and 10 artifacts. So
Yeah.
that's the breakdown, and we are going to kind of go through this deck for you based on a formula that Shauna's going to tell you about.
Yeah. So we like to follow this formula. Wizards of the Coast does a lot of times, sometimes not so much, depending on the theme. But we sure like this formula. It calls for about 15 ramp cards, 15 removal, because you got to get rid of their stuff, 13 card draw, because card draw is king, 12 impact, high impact, sorry, and those ones are cards that win you the game, as well as about 10 other cards, other win conditions that support your overall theme of the deck and help you get to the big W. And about 35 lands is kind of the basic what we think of. And so, Leslie, what's our first category?
First category is ramp and mana generators. We got to have mana in order to play our spells. So we
Mm-hmm.
want 15 in a deck. This deck has 9, so it's a little light on that. Impulsive Pilfer is the first one for 1. It's a 1/1. When it dies, you get to create a treasure token. So you get a body. When it dies, you get a treasure. It also has Encore for 4, which means you can cast it from your graveyard. For each opponent, you get to create a token that's a copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste, and then you can sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. And remember, when he dies, you get to create a treasure. So early on in the game, you can create a bunch of copies and then get treasures for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this deck has lots of treasure, which helps with that whole mana
Ramp.
generating thing.
Yeah.
We've got some arcane signet, of course, which is the traditional new staple. For 2, it taps for any color in your commander's color identity, and we also have a soul ring that taps for the 2 as well. So they nicely come in these decks. So it's beautiful.
And we have a new 1 mana of any color one. It costs 3, but it also has this added little ability. It's called Bounty Board, and you can pay 1 and tap and put a bounty counter onto a target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. Then, whenever a creature with a bounty counter on it dies, each of its controllers' opponents draws a card and gains 2 life. So it's a nice way to try and say, hey, shoot that thing, kill that thing, because if you do, all of us get to draw a card and gain a couple life. So,
Mm-hmm. Then we have glittering stockpile. It is a treasure by itself. It's for 2 and a red, a little artifact that lets you tap for red and put a stash counter on it. And then you can tap and sacrifice this glittering stockpile and add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of stash counters on our little stockpile. So build it up throughout the game and use it later.
yep. We have a couple signets in here, Orzhov signet and Rakdos signet. These are both 2 mana cost signets that you can pay 1 and tap for both of the colors on them. Of course, Orzhov colored or Rakdos colors.
Yeah. Then we have this funny looking card called Life Insurance. It's an enchantment for 3, a white and a black, that says Extort. So whenever you cast a spell, you can pay a white or a black. And if you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. So whenever a non token creature dies, you lose a life and create a treasure. So you're going to be building up a little bit of life, draining theirs and making treasures every time you play something. So it's a little bit of extortion going on there.
Of course, we have this brand new card called Soul Ring that no one's ever heard of. It's a 1 mana cost artifact that taps for 2. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
everyone loves a Soul Ring.
Yes, and Reign of Riches, it's for 3 and 2 black, and enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2 treasures, and the first spell you cast each turn that mana from a treasure was spent to cast has Cascade. So then you can use those treasures to basically, when you cascade, you get to cast, when you cast that spell, you get to exile cards from the top of your library until you come across a non-land card that costs less than that mana cost, and you can cast it without paying for it. So that could get a little bit out of hand.
Hmm. And the next section is our card draw tutors, things that help you dig through your deck. As Shauna said earlier, card draw is king. Formula calls for 13. This deck has 12, so we're right on par where we need to be. Angelic Sellsword is our first one for 5. It's a 4/4. It has flying and vigilance, which is super great. And then whenever it or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. This creature, target creature you control gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Whenever this attacks, its power, or sorry, if its power is greater than 6, you can draw a card. So what you're going to want to do is every time something enters, you're going to create these little red mercenary creature tokens that let you buff up your creature, and then you can tap them all, buff up this creature, make
Right.
him bigger, and then you get to draw cards from him.
Yeah. And he's flying in vigilance.
Yeah.
Humble Defector, it's a 2/1 little human rogue for 1 and a red that you can tap and draw 2 cards. A target opponent gains control of this. So it's a little bit of a political play here, and you get to only activate it during your turn.
Yeah, you can be friends. Give
Yeah.
someone a gift. Marry the Killing Quill for 3 is a 3/2. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, exile it with a hit counter on it. So, assassins, mercenaries, and rogues you control have death touch, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a hit counter from a card that player owns and exile it. If you do, draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens. So, lots of like crazy shenanigans happening with this card. But basically, you're going to exile things that die with hit counters, and then you can remove hit counters to get a benefit.
Lots of stuff to keep track of. Then we have the Morbid Opportunist, which is a great little card, a 1/3 for 2 and a black that says whenever one or more creatures die, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn, but it's certainly great when you're playing in multiplayer for sure.
Mm-hmm. Queen Marchesa, lovely card, great commander just by herself. She is a 1 and 3 colors, so red, white, and black. For a 3/3 Death Touch Haste, when she enters, you become Monarch, which means you draw an extra card at the end of your turn. However, if someone does damage to you, then they steal the Monarch from you. So now it's in play and it's there for the rest of the game. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent is the Monarch, create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with that touch or haste. So you don't care if they steal the Monarch from you. In fact, you want them to, because now you have a whole bunch of assassins that are being created that you can use for helping your deck.
For sure. Rankle, Master of Pranks. He's a little 3/3 fairy rogue, so he is a outlaw for 2 and 2 black, flying in haste. And whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you get to choose any number. So each player discards a card, each player loses a life and draws a card, each player sacrifices a creature. So you might have lots of little outlaws you can sacrifice, but they do not use it.
Absolutely. Painful Truths for 3 is a sorcery that has Converge. You draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. So if you use all 3 of your colors, you can potentially draw 3 cards.
Seize the Spotlight for 2 and a red. It's a little sorcery that says each opponent chooses Fame or Fortune. For each player who chose Fame, gain control of a creature that player controls until end of turn. Untap those creatures and they gain haste until end of turn. For each player who chose Fortune, you draw a card and create a treasure token. So
Mm-hmm.
they have to decide what they want to do.
Absolutely. Deadly Dispute for 2 is an instant, and as an additional cost to cast the spell, you have to sacrifice an artifact or a creature, but you get to draw 2 cards and create 2 treasure tokens.
Just one.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Bandit's Hall. For this is a new card that looks really fun. For 3, it's an artifact that says whenever you commit a crime, you put a loot counter on Bandit's Hall. This ability triggers only once each turn. So you can tap it for mana, but more importantly, you can tap it for 2 and remove 2 loot counters from it and draw a card. So committing a crime is when you target something an opponent controls, whether it's in their graveyard or anything on the battlefield. So you could be stealing something. You could, yeah. So just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
You're
Actually, if
you're
it's when you target the opponent as well. So if you say target opponent loses a life or whatever, that's targeting them too. So
yeah,
that's a loot.
targeting opponents, anything they control, or cards in their graveyard.
Yep.
It's a
Nice.
crime. So only do it if you're an outlaw.
Yeah, that's right.
Now you can say that to people when they like
Uh-huh.
steal you're like, you're not allowed to do that. It's a crime. Literally. Idol of Oblivion for 2 is an artifact. Draw a card. You can tap it to draw a card, and you can only activate this ability if you created a token this turn. Any token. It could be a treasure token, clue token, creature token. Or you can pay 8 and tap it and sacrifice it to create a 10/10 Eldrazi creature token. So, I mean,
Nice.
whatever you need.
Yeah, he's good. Discreet Retreat for 3 and a black. It is a fun little aura that says Enchant Land. Enchanted Land has add 2 mana of any one color and spend it only to cast outlaw spells or activate abilities from outlaw sources.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be a fun way to get get some ramp going. Whenever you cast your first outlaw spell, each turn you draw a card and lose a life. That's okay.
That will be a trigger that, because it's at the very bottom of the card, you may forget to do, and it's
Yep.
enchanting the land. So don't forget to do that trigger.
Yep.
Our next section is removal. We think you should have 15. This deck has 14. So again, we're right on par. Good job, Wizards. So, Havoc Razor for 2 is a 2/2. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, choose one. You can either goad a target creature that player controls, or you can exile the top card of that player's library until the end of turn. You can cast that card, and you spend mana as though it was any color. So that's another, like, you're targeting their creatures by goading them and or playing their cards. So goading means that that creature can't attack you but has to attack next turn.
Crazy. Massacre Girl. So this one, it does indeed do massacre. It's a 4/4 for 3 and 2 black. Menace. When she enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1 till end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1 till end of turn. So it just kind of spirals until everything is dead. Pretty much, depending how many
Except
cards are
her.
out. Except her. Board
Yeah.
wipe.
Witch of the Moors for 5 is a 4/4. It has Death Touch. And at the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature and you return up to one target creature from your graveyard to your hand. So you get something back. They have to sacrifice something. Good opportunity or reason to gain some life.
Yeah. Council's Judgment for 1 and 2 white. It's a sorcery that says, Will of the Council, starting with you, each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for the most votes. So everyone gets together to get rid of something bad on someone's board.
Yeah.
Uh,
Feed the Swarm for 2, destroy target creature or enchantment, and you have to lose life equal to its converted mana cost, but it's a good price to pay for a nice removal spell.
mm-hmm. Hex for 4 and 2 black. It's a sorcery that says destroy 6 creatures.
That's 1 mana for each creature. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane.
Mass Mutiny for 5. For each opponent, gain control of up to one target creature that player controls. So again, you're targeting their creatures until the end, so you're committing a crime until the end
Mm-hmm.
of turn. Untap those creatures. They gain haste until the end of the turn. So now you can, like, swingy away at them.
And then sacrifice them or something. Requisition Raid. This is a fun art card here. For 1, it's a sorcery that says spree, so you can choose 1 or more additional costs, so you can pay 1 extra for as many times as you want there. And for each of those times, you get to either destroy an artifact or an enchantment or put a 1/1 counter on each creature target player controls.
Such a good
What?
spell. It's basically, again, 1 mana for any of those things as
Yeah.
many times as you want or need.
Yeah.
So good. Boros Charm for 2. Basically, it deals 4 damage to target player or permanent. Or permanents you control are indestructible this turn, or target creature gains double strike until the end of turn. So lots of
Yeah.
versatility.
Yeah. Curtain's Call for 5 and a black. It's an instant that says Undaunted, so the spell costs 1 less to cast for each opponent. Um, destroy 2 target creatures. Just the art is just kind of sad. He's going to jump in
Yeah.
there and kill them both. Oh dear. This is
And then we have Dead Before Sunrise, and I don't know why the Western music. It's in my
yep.
head. Until the end of turn, outlaw creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain tap. This creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature. So they all
Mm-hmm.
just get to tap and do some damage to other people's creatures. You can assign the damage to whichever creatures you want and mix and match as needed.
That's insane. If you have the Gold Waker out, your outlaws have vigilance. It's
And you're
insane.
targeting, so and committing crimes.
Gosh, so much stuff. All right, Heliod's Intervention for X and 2 white. It says choose 1, destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments, so you get to spread the love. and or sorry, you have to choose one. So, or target player gains twice X life. There's a little bit of life gain for you if you need it.
Hmm. And then we have shoot the sheriff, but not the deputy. For for two, destroy target non-outlaw creature.
Mm-hmm. Everyone else is
I
fair
shot the
game.
sheriff, but I didn't shoot
Shining
the
Impetus
deputy.
is a fun little removal that we like to call removal. For two and a red, it's a little enchantment. You enchant a creature, it gets +2/+2 and is goaded. And whenever that enchanted creature attacks, you create a treasure token. And as Leslie said, they can't attack you with it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, high impact cards, we think you should have at least 12 in your deck. This deck, by our recollection, only has about 5. So,
Mhm.
it does definitely have room for some higher impact cards. Most of the stuff in this deck is support for your outlaws and things like that. It can work really well, and that's fine. Yes, Kitty, I know you're hungry. And Graph Marauders for go see your dad. For 7 is a 4/4. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to the permanent or player instead. So this is going to do some really good work for you, and either be removal and or player removal.
Yeah. And Brina, the demagogue, is for one and a white and a black. It's a 1/3 flyer. Leslie does some serious damage when she plays with this card. Whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another of your opponents, that attacking player draws a card, and you put 2/1/1 counters on a creature you control. So, yeah, she does that a lot.
I don't know why you think it's damage. I'm just trying to help everyone out, let you draw cards, but
Yeah.
whatever. Dire Fleet Ravager for 5 is a 4/4. It has Menace, it has Death Touch, and then when it enters the battlefield, each player loses a third of his or her life rounded up. So there's just an instant good benefit for you, and then you just kill them with the rest of the attacks.
Hurts you too, but you're being
It's
so aggressive,
fine.
it doesn't matter.
It's fine.
Marshland Bloodcaster is Vampire Warlock for 4 and a black, 3/5 flyer, and you can pay 1 and a black and tap this rather than pay the mana cost of the next spell you cast. You can pay life equal to that spell's mana value.
Mm.
So you're playing a little bit with your life, but that's what vampires do.
And Vihan Goldwalker, of course, we talked about him already. For 3 is a 3/3. Other outlaws have vigilance and haste, which is great. He's going to do some benefits with treasures and become construct assassins.
Mm-hmm.
So, really good high impact card there.
Yeah. So then for the next section here, we have the other cards that are on theme or that basically support your theme. So this deck, the formula calls for 10. This deck has a lot of it because it's all about the synergy. So sometimes you kind of ignore the formula and go for that synergy piece. So this one we have the Academy Manufactor. It's a 1/3 assembly worker for 3, and it's basically he's there to let you create extra treasures. So if you would create a clue, food, or treasure, you would create one of each. So you're gonna do well. Actually, no, sorry, it's not 2 treasures. You're creating clues and foods as well. And foods are what might keep you alive, and clues let you draw cards. So that again will help you.
All right, Aetherborn Marauder is our next one. Next one for 4. It's a 2/2 with flying lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you move any number of 1/1 counters from other permanents you control to this guy. So because he's flying and lifelink, you're going to gain some life back. You're going to make him bigger. He's flying, so he has evasion. So you can just manipulate those counters that as you need with this guy.
He's an outlaw. We have another pirate here, Captain Lannery Storm, for 2 and a red. A 2/2 with haste. Whenever she attacks, create a treasure. And whenever you sacrifice the treasure, she gets +1/+0 till end of turn. So she could be really big and aggressive.
Mm-hmm. And captivating crew. Everyone loves this in any steely pirate, whatever.
Mhm.
Outlaw deck. For 4, you can gain control of target creature and opponent controls until the end of turn. You untap that creature, it gains haste until the end of turn, and you can only activate this as a sorcery. So 4/3 for 4 mana is great, especially since you can just do that over and over again with that cost.
Changeling Outcast is a shapeshifter, so shapeshifter means that it is every card type. So it is certainly an outlaw,
An outlaw.
and it can't block and it can't be blocked. So just get in there for some damage. Ping, 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 ping. Put some counters on there. There you go.
And Charred Grave Robber for 3 is a 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, you return target outlaw card from your graveyard to your hand. It also has Escape, which means you can exile 4 other cards from your graveyard and pay this cost to return it from your graveyard, or cast it from your graveyard. And then also, Charred Grave Robber escapes with a 1/1 counter on it. So it's a little bit bigger when it comes back.
Yeah. Direfleet Daredevil. This is a little 2/1 pirate that has first strike. That's helpful with the 2/1. And when it enters the battlefield, exile target instant or sorcery card from opponent's graveyard, and you may cast that card, and you may spend mana as just to play that card. So then you have to exile.
Yep. Fane the Broker has a lot of text on him as well. For 3, he's a 3/3. He does lots of things. So first, you can tap him to sacrifice a creature and put 2/1/1 counters on target creature. Get some counters. Or you can tap him and remove a counter from a creature you control to create a treasure token. Or you can tap him and sacrifice an artifact to create a 2/1 white and black inkling creature token with flying. And he has this other little added benefit that you can pay for to untap him. So if you have enough mana, you can tap him, untap him, tap him, untap him as much as you need to.
Do all the things. Steal their stuff and sacrifice them. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Grey Waters Fixer. This is a new card. It's a 4/4 for 2 black and red. Little mercenary. Each outlaw creature card in your graveyard has Encore X, where X is its mana value. So basically, you get to exile it and pay its Encore cost. And for each opponent, you create a token that's a copy of it. And they have haste, so you attack all your opponents with ghost copies, basically, of your stuff in your graveyard, which is really fun.
Mm-hmm. And Camber the Plunderer for 4 is a 3/4. Now this says partner with Loreen the Diversion. I don't know if that's in this deck, but that might be a potential. She's it next.
She's
Okay,
next.
perfect. Well then, so you partner with her, and this one has lifelink, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain 1 life and create a blood token. And of course, you're going to go get Loreen the Diversion, which Shauna will talk about.
Mm-hmm. So she is a rogue, a 3/3 for 2 and a red that, of course, partners. And she has first strike, and you can pay 2 and sacrifice an artifact or creature and a goad another creature. So that's how you use that one.
Yeah. So nice synergy there. Mirror Entity for 3 is another changeling, and you can also pay X until the end of turn. Creatures you control have a base power and toughness of XX, and they gain all creature types. So now everything is everything, and it gets +X+X. So that's just crazy.
Yeah. Misfortune Teller for 3 for 3 and a black. It's a 3/1 death touching warlock. Whenever it enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, you exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature, you make a 2/2 black rogue. If it was a land, you make a treasure, and otherwise you gain 3 life. So they need to get rid of this little 3/1.
They do, yeah. Mist Meadow Skulk for 2. It's a 1/1. It has lifelink. It has protection from converted mana cost 3 or greater. So what is protection? Protection means it can't be damaged by, enchanted by, blocked by, or targeted by anything with a converted mana cost 3 or greater. In this case. So yeah, it's a nice little, has some protection. 1/1.
Yeah. And then we have our Nighthawk Scavenger, which is a little vampire rogue that has flying, death touch, and lifelink. Love this card. It's for 1 and 2 black. Its power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyard. So, so different artifact, creature, sorceries, that sort of thing. So it's the number of card types it has. Plus one,
Yep.
they have.
Ogre Slumlord for 5 is a 3/3. Whenever another non token creature dies, you may create a 1/1 black rat creature token. And rats you control have death touch, so why
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
that's right. Tenured Ink Caster. It's a 2/2 for 4 and a black. When it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. And whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it attacks, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. So you've got a few 1/1 counter things going on and a few life gain things, which we need, as we remember
Mm-hmm.
from before.
And Vane Winch Coven for 3. It's a 3/3. It has Menace, which means
Mhm.
it's going to be harder to block. It has to be blocked by 2. And whenever you gain life, you may
Mhm.
pay 1 black. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Good graveyard recursion, and we do have a good amount of life link in this deck.
Mhm. Back in Town. This is a fun card.
Boy,
So it
back in town.
is exactly. It is for X and 2 in a black. A sorcery that says return X target outlaw creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. They're
Yep.
back in town. I love it.
Yep.
Love it. Love it.
And Lightning Greaves equipped creature has haste and shroud. Just a little, it equips for 0, so that's an
Yeah.
auto equip. However, it's not auto equip. Sorry, it's a 0 cost equip. Just a reminder that shroud means that it can't be targeted by you either. So you'll want to equip that last, or you'll have to unequip it, which means equip it to another creature because you can't just unequip, and then equip it back to him if you need to target your own creature in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form.
Then we have Trailblazers Boots for 2. This is another little equipment. So the equipped creature has non-basic land walk, so that means it's unblockable as long as the defending player has a non-basic land, which pretty much everyone does in Commander. And its equipped cost is 2, so that really helps you get in there for some damage.
Mm-hmm. And then We Ride at Dawn is the last one in this section for 3. It's a lovely little enchantment that makes legendary creature spells have Convoke. That means you can use your creatures to tap for mana. You can use them either for the color that they are or colorless if you need. Plus, this one also says whenever your commander attacks, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token. So you're just going to be able to create more things to convoke with, and those things will also buff things up. So it's a nice do a lot enchantment.
You can use that Convoke to help you pay the command tax on your
Yes,
commander too,
yes.
which is really helpful later on in the game.
Yeah.
All right. So this deck has 37 lands. Formula calls for 34, so not a lot of room there. But as you can see, there is a little bit of tweaks that maybe you might need in this deck. A few holes potentially, but we've got some tweak ideas for you coming up right now. So our first one
Mm-hmm.
is the Boneyard Desecrator. So it is a new common out of the new set, and it is just a zombie mercenary, a 3/4 for 3 and a black with menace though, and you can pay 1 and a black and sacrifice another creature, which is good if you're stealing them, and put a 1/1 counter on this guy. And if an outlaw was sacrificed this way, you get to create a treasure. So it's a great little sacrifice outlet that is easy to use and get treasures
Yeah.
and counters, which is
Yep.
exactly what this deck needs. So
And this one isn't type outlaw, but it is an outlaw, Dune Rider outlaw for 2. It's a
rogues need
1/1. It
outlet too.
happens to be a rogue, so it's for sure an outlaw in this deck. Protection from green, which remember, protection means damaged, equipped, uh, blocked by, or targeted by green. At the beginning of each end step, if Dune Rider outlaw is dealt damage, you to an
If he
opponent
deals
this
damage, yeah.
turn, deals damage, yeah, dealt damage to an opponent, put a 1/1 counter on it. So if he gets in,
Nice.
then he gets bigger and bigger each time. So that would
Another,
be a great.
yeah, totally. Another fun card to add from the new set for 2 and 2 red. It's a lizard rogue, and other outlaws you control have haste, which is awesome. And when it enters the battlefield, you create 2 mercenaries that can tap and add +1/+0. So help with that
Mm-hmm.
whole aggression thing.
We actually found that there was a lot of good cards from this set for this because it is
Hmm.
an outlaw deck, so you do have to kind of like have that theme.
Yep.
So, Laughing Jasper Flint, which is a great name, for 3 is a 4/3. Creatures you control but don't own are mercenaries in addition to their other types. And at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws you control,
What?
which will be a lot. Until the end of turn, you may cast spells from among those using any mana. And then whatever you don't cast is just
So
going to stay in
crazy.
exile. So, so
So
much
crazy.
removal. This is, I think, a must add in this deck.
I think so too. Yeah, I would agree. Vile Smasher, Gleeful Grenadier. Grenadier? I don't know. Grenadier. It's a
Yeah.
3/2 Goblin Mercenary for the black and the red. Whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield under your control, this guy deals 1 damage to target opponent. So
Mm-hmm.
you're making all those crazy warlocks and you're playing mercenaries at, oh my gosh, it's going to do lots of damage. So it's another must include, I think, as well.
Yeah. This one's a maybe include. Radiant Destinies, great for any typal deck that is out there. It has Ascend, so as soon as you have 10 permanents on the battlefield, that City's Blessing is going to come into play. It stays with you for the rest of the game. And when it enters, you're going to choose a creature type. Now, unfortunately, Outlaws is not a creature type. The creature types are assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. I think probably, and I don't know what you think, Shauna, but I think mercenaries because there's so many things that are creating these little mercenary
Yeah, I
tokens.
think so.
So that would probably be the one you want to pick. But of course, you can choose whichever one you think works well for you at the time. But creatures you control of that chosen type get +1/+1. And as long as you have the city's blessing, they
Mm.
also have vigilance. So giving those things vigilance so you can attack with them and then tap with them after
Yeah,
the fact to
exactly.
get the little +1/+0 is a great option
Yeah, definitely. Because they can be attacking and then you tap in the middle of combat if
in
you
the
want.
middle of combat to give something
Yeah,
buffed up, right?
it's crazy. Then, if you have access to this card, I know it's a little pricey. Dockside Extortionist, 1/2 for 1 and red. Little Goblin Pirate, so he is an outlaw for sure. When he enters the battlefield, you create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. Lots of artifacts and enchantments in Commander, so that is a
Mm-hmm.
great card for you.
Yeah. And you can't have a treasure deck without including this card. If you can find it, Revel in Riches for 5.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you create a treasure token, which you can, of course, sacrifice your mana. But at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you
And
win the game. And because
so
you're
great.
creating so many treasures with this, if you have this in, there's a good chance that that'll be an additional win con. Once you play it, though, it'll be like we have to kill them before they
Yeah.
win the game. So it will make you a target. So be okay with that.
Yep, exactly. Then Ragavan is a little monkey pirate, nimble pilfer. This is another card that if you can get your hands on it, might be fun in this deck. A 2/1. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you make a treasure token, exile the top card of that player's library, and you can cast that card. Or the reason I said cash was because this card also has dash, where you get to play it for its dash cost, give it haste, and then return it to your hand. So get in there,
Mm-hmm.
do damage, and pop back into the safety of your hand.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And Tiny Bones, the pickpocket, is so adorable in this set. As if we didn't love Tiny Bones enough, in the story, he is just the most amazing, hilarious, cute little character. He's a 1/1 for 1. He has Death Touch, but whenever Tiny Bones the Pickpocket deals combat damage to a player, you can cast a target non land permanent card from that player's graveyard. And of course, you can use your mana in any way that you need to do that. So he's probably going to get in because he has Death Touch. Someone might not want you to do anything for them, so they will just block. But he has good potential.
Yeah, definitely. Then we have Rakdos the Muscle for a 6/5, a demon mercenary for 2 and 2 black and a red. This guy, flying trample. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, which we're going to do, we can exile cards equal to its mana value from the top of target player's library. Until your next turn, you may play those cards, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. And it has right on there, sacrifice another creature, and he is indestructible until end of turn, and you have to tap him. But
Yeah.
still,
So he just
oh my
helps
god.
himself. If you get this
Yep.
card, that's an auto include as
Yeah,
well.
definitely.
Giza the Hellraiser for 5 is a 4/4. She has Ward 2 and pay 2 life, so they have to pay 2 extra mana and pay 2 life in order to target her.
Mhm.
Skeletons and zombies you control get +1/+1 and have menace. And then whenever you commit a crime, create 2 tapped 2/2 black zombie rogue creature tokens. So she's going to buff up those zombies. They're going to be outlaws because they're rogues. You're going to be
Mhm.
committing crimes like crazy. So while there's not a lot of zombies and skeletons to begin with, she will create her army that she needs.
Yep,
So,
definitely. And I really like the Archpriest of Shadows as a card. It's a warlock, so it is a outlaw as well. It's a 4/4 for 3 and 2 black. It has backup 1, so when this creature enters the battlefield, you can put a 1/1 counter on another creature, and if it is another creature, then it gets the following abilities from underneath here, which is Death Touch, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, folks, to the battlefield.
free.
So yeah, so and then of course the Archpreach of Shadows, as long as it's still out there on the every time it does damage, you
Yeah,
get to return.
it has those abilities too.
Yeah, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And then our last suggestion for tweaks is Magda the Horde Master. For 1 or for 2, she's a 2/2. Again, she's from
Mhm.
this set. She's a dwarf berserker, so she's not an outlaw. But she takes advantage of these crimes that you're committing. Whenever you commit a crime, you get to create a tapped treasure token. And then you can sacrifice 3 treasure tokens to create a 4/4 red scorpion dragon creature token with flying and haste. So
So fun.
creating some dragons by committing some crimes. You're getting some treasures. Another way to use those treasures that you've been looking for.
Yeah, very fun.
Yep.
So that's it. Thanks for watching. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to hear what you would do with this deck. What kind of fun shenanigans are you going to do there in the outlaw being outlaw in the Wild West? And that's it for this time. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime,
Tap those magic cards and have fun doing it, partner.
bye everyone.